法律同制度嘅根本，市民可享有各種權利同自由。有智慧，請講出一國兩制有利香港發展嘅實例。小婆，有水準，以中國香港身份參與奧運，有見地。講得幾好啊！
It's the annual competition of originality, creativity, determination.
It represents where I want to be as a chef.
And flavor.
Simply amazing.
Start believing in yourself a little bit more.
Thursday and Friday, MasterChef, Season 4, at 8:30 on Pearl. Wine lover and jewelry designer Michelle Leung.
I've realized that it's very similar to the journey of my creative development.
And the Queen of Burgundy, the 82-year-old Madame Lalou Bise-Leroy. Thursday, Daloyo Paris in 1682 presents In Vino Veritas at 9:30 on Pearl.
Good evening. Much of the focus is on the stunning slide in the Russian ruble that presented President Vladimir Putin with one of his biggest challenges. The currency, which is under pressure from lower oil prices and Western sanctions over Moscow's conflict with Ukraine, fell 20% before recovering somewhat by afternoon Russian time to trade at around 72 per US dollar. Elsewhere, Asian stocks slid after Chinese manufacturing contracted this month, and US stocks opened moderately lower. Let's see how Wall Street is doing. The Dow Jones is up 7 points, the S&P 500 is flat. US 30-year Treasury bond is priced at $106.06. Spot gold $1,195 an ounce. US dollar cross rates: the yen 116.73, the euro 1.25, and the sterling 1.57. European markets: the UK FTSE is up 37 points, the French CAC is up 11 points, and the German DAX is up 68 points. Stay with us, the news is next.
You're watching TVB Pearl. Up shortly, we hand you over to our news department for a summary of all the day's top stories in the News Roundup. Savor the perfection of Japanese robatayaki. Travel back in time in classic cars. Learn to cook smart. Plus, dress up your dining table this Christmas. Thursday night, Dolce Vita at 10 on Pearl. It's America's favorite battleground.
Today we're here to win you over.
Who will be the last one standing?
And you just hit the peak. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yes!
Saturday, America's Got Talent, Season 8 at 8:30 on Pearl.
靈感源自金沙朱古力，我哋創造兩款巧手之作：朗沙濃郁黑朱古力珍珠，雪沙原粒果仁純白精緻。Ferrero Collection, the gift of excellence。
咪俾睇唔見嘅甲醛破壞你嘅家庭幸福。立邦金裝抗甲醛正味全效，分解有害甲醛，轉化成水分子，仲超級抗菌。
金主，
捍衛家人健康，我的靈感，我的立邦。
To prevent avian flu, you should avoid touching birds, poultry, or their droppings. And wash hands frequently. Make sure that all foods from poultry, including eggs, are thoroughly cooked before eating. When traveling outside Hong Kong, avoid visiting poultry markets and farms. Do not bring any birds or poultry back to Hong Kong. If you develop fever and respiratory symptoms after your trip, wear a mask and consult your doctor explaining your travel history.
Harry, be safe. Be strong.
The complete Harry Potter saga for 8 straight weeks.
If Voldemort's building up an army that I want to fight.
He's too strong. I never wanted any of you to die for me. We can end this.
Government bid to boost home ownership under long-term housing plan. National tragedy in Pakistan as school comes under deadly attack. And Thierry Henry calling it a career, and what a career it's been. Good evening. The government has set 480,000 units as its housing supply target for the next decade. In its long-term housing strategy document, it also says it will explore ways to help people buy property. Stephanie Cho reports.
According to the latest projections, the government has set a supply target of 480,000 units between 2015 to 16 and 2024 to 25. That's 10,000 more from the target for the 10 years from 2013 announced earlier. The current 60-40 ratio of public and private flats will be retained. So, out of the 480,000 units, the public housing supply target will be 290,000, 200,000 rental units and 90,000 subsidized sale flats. 190,000 will be private homes. The government plans to cover the extra 10,000 units by building new subsidized flats. It's putting forward 3 strategies to try to achieve the overall long-term target.
Number 1, to build more public rental housing units and to ensure the rational use of existing stock. Number 2, to provide more subsidized sale flats, expand the forms of subsidized home ownership and facilitate the market circulation of existing stock. And number 3, to stabilize the residential property market through steady land supply and appropriate demand management measures, and to promote good sales and tenancy practices.
Chung said the government will have to consider more ways to expand subsidized home ownership. Latest government figures show right now there are 86,400 subdivided units, which is 30% more than 2 years ago. Authorities stress as long as there is enough land supply, issues arising from rents, property prices and subdivided flats can all be solved. The government says it has adopted a supply-led strategy and a policy shift to tackle an imbalance between supply and demand. And officials are not in favor of reintroducing rent control regulations, saying such a move may lead to other problems. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
Grassroots groups are disappointed about the new housing strategy, saying it ignores the needs of low-income households. Shoa Da Silva has that story.
About a dozen grassroots groups have already voiced their objections to the government's newly released housing strategy. Chan Hoi Chi of the Alliance for Concerning Grassroots Housing Rights said the plan to build 200,000 public rental units over the next 10 years was beyond insufficient. Already there are more than 260,000 cases on the public housing waiting list, she said, and there will be new ones in the coming decade. The groups were also upset that the government shot down the idea of reintroducing rent control. Saying that the government should use Urban Renewal Authority land for public housing, they demanded that new public housing flats be provided in every district. Wong Kun, chairman of the Federation of Public Housing Estates, criticized the government for not taking on board suggestions made by the Long-Term Housing Strategy Steering Committee and not responding to people's needs. Wong, who was on the steering committee, said, for example, no solution was offered to the problem of providing living space for those in subdivided flats, nor was there any mention of increasing subsidized housing units in the long run. Democratic Party lawmaker Wu Chi-wai, who sits on LegCo's panel on housing, expressed concern that the government may have more heart than ability in executing long-term housing strategies. He projected problems with the government trying to get approval for each step along the way of its plans, given its low popularity. But panel chairwoman Alice Mack of the Federation of Trade Unions welcomed this strategy. She hopes the overall target of an extra 10,000 flats could help sandwich-class residents buy their own homes. These are people who are over the limit for public housing, yet can't afford the hefty down payments for homes in the private market. Shwanda Silva, TVB News.
To other news now. CLP Power announced its electricity tariffs will go up next year, although the rise is far lower than expected. Meanwhile, Hong Kong Electric's charges will remain the same. After raising electricity tariffs this year, CLP said today it would increase charges again in 2015. This time the tariff increase will be 3.1%, which means each unit of electricity will cost $1.142.
Next year we will use more natural gas that affects the fuel expense. The fuel cross charge will rise to 27 cents.
Yet with energy rebates, the power company said 36% of households that use their service will pay less. The adjustment will take effect on January 1st. Meanwhile, Hong Kong Electric said their electricity fees will remain unchanged. The company's managing director attributed their decision to falling fuel prices. Despite freezing its tariffs, Hong Kong Electric prices continue to be more expensive compared with CLP. How does the public feel about CLP's tariff increase? This person said the increase is reasonable, and as long as it is not above the inflation rate, then it's fine. Yet this man said he had hoped the increase would be less. The Energy Advisory Committee's chairman, Raymond So, meanwhile had some good news for consumers. He said with the price of fuel dropping, electricity charges could drop further in the future. With the scheme of control that allows CLP Power and Hong Kong Electric to control the power market in the city expiring in 2018, So believes both companies will try to keep their tariff adjustments to a minimum to gain support of the public in the government consultation on how the SAR should meet its future electricity and power needs. Turning overseas now. Taliban gunmen stormed a school in the northwestern Pakistani city of Peshawar today, killing at least 126 people, most of them students. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif called it a national tragedy. Pakistan television showed security forces surrounding the area after a group of armed men entered the military-run school this morning. The gunmen reportedly shot at random while exams were taking place in the school. Dozens were wounded. The Taliban has claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it's in revenge for the army's offensive launched in North Waziristan back in June. Sharif condemned the assault. He made clear the country would not be cowed by the violence and that the military would continue its campaign against insurgents. Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott led his country in mourning today for the victims of the Sydney cafe siege, which left 3 people dead, including the lone gunman who took more than a dozen people hostage. Abbott pledged he would work with national and local authorities to find out whether more could have been done to prevent it. Tony Saban reports.
It was just after 2 a.m. local time when tactical police made their move to end the 16-hour siege at a Sydney cafe. Armed with stun grenades and live ammunition, police stormed the place. Flashes of light and gunshot erupted from inside the Lindt cafe, moments after several hostages escaped. But when it was all over, the lone gunman at the center of the crisis, Iranian refugee man Haron Monis, was dead, along with 2 hostages. Several others were wounded, including 1 police officer. Today, shocked Sydneyers paid their respects to the fallen, laying flowers near the cafe in the city's central business district.
It's absolutely devastating that could happen, and that just anyone going about their business, going to get a coffee in the morning, and to have something so tragic and horrible happen to them and the families and extended families is just horrific.
Local and national politicians also visited the site, including Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott